Hello, I'm Rob, and welcome to R&B Reviews. The summer blockbuster season is now over, and normally on R&B Reviews we usually kick off the blockbuster season the first weekend of April, which is when the big budget studio blockbuster films start to come out, and we end it the first weekend of September. Well, I just got done doing my video on what I thought were the best movies of the 2015 summer blockbuster season, and now I'm going to be moving on to this video. I'm going to pick two movies that I thought were disappointing and one movie that I thought was the worst of this previous season. So let's get started. My number two pick for disappointing is a movie that, I'll be honest with you, I'm not sure if I should have included on my disappointing list because I didn't really have any high hopes for it from the get-go. But when James Cameron started doing interviews and sort of endorsing the movie, I thought, maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe it's not as bad as it looks. In the end, I ended up going with my gut feeling from right before I went into the movie theater. My number two pick is Terminator Genisys. Now, I thought the movie got off to a very good start, and a lot of people complained about that they were messing with the timelines from the earlier Terminator movies, but honestly, that didn't really bug me all that much. But I did find the film to be a bit confusing at times, and I thought some of the acting was a bit of a letdown. For example, I didn't really like Emilia Clarke as Sarah Connor, and while she is stronger here compared to her 1984 Terminator, the first film counterpart, to me she came across as one of those, the only way I can really describe it is, those family movies usually got those teens that are sarcastic and whiny and they hate their life. That's kind of like what she reminded me of. And I also found her to be kind of bland here. Jai Courtney played Reese, and I thought, he was okay. And Jason Clarke played Connor. I thought out of the three leads, he was pretty good. Schwarzenegger I thought was fine as the Terminator. I mean, his character in this movie does a lot of explaining of plot points, and to me, I don't know if it was the dialogue or his acting, but it kind of sounded weird to have him explain all this complex stuff when in the previous films he really didn't have to necessarily do it like that. The director, Alan Taylor, had admitted that he didn't know what the script was about, and I think that's not a good sign. I think perhaps if they had gotten a director who perhaps could have grasped it, I think it could have been even better. Overall, it wasn't a horrible movie, and I kind of perhaps liked this one more than the previous Terminator movie, which was Terminator Salvation, but to me, I just found this film to be very, very disappointing. Now, my number one disappointing movie was a movie that I actually had on my list for my summer preview video when I was talking about the movies that I was most looking forward to, and this was on my list. It opened the last weekend of May, which here in the United States is Memorial Day weekend, and it only made $30 million. It got bad reviews from critics, and I think it split moviegoers. There's some people that will defend this movie, but there's a lot of people that, just didn't like this movie. That movie is Tomorrowland. Oh, and another thing, I guess this movie is now added to the list of other Disney feature film flops like John Carter and Lone Ranger, but with Tomorrowland, I kind of left the theater feeling very baffled and very underwhelmed. It runs at about, I want to say it was about 130 minutes, but yet I found the movie to be crammed with so much, and sometimes it seemed like the only way I can really describe it is it moved so fast that sometimes when a plot point came up, another one would immediately follow it afterwards, and you wouldn't really have a chance to really digest that previous plot point. And sometimes I thought, why was this one thrown in here, and why was it thrown in here? And some of the actors spoke so fast that I also had a hard time grasping what they were saying. And I thought there were moments that I felt lacked suspense that you needed in a movie like this. And some of the violence I thought came across as a little bit gratuitous or didn't really belong in there. The performances I thought were a bit of a mixed bag. I thought Britt Robertson as Casey, who is a teen who is an optimist and she loves science, I thought she was decent in the part, but I got tired of her yelling all the time. And George Clooney came across to me as a bit one-dimensional. I think the best performance out of the whole movie was Raffi Cassidy, who plays a girl robot named Athena who travels with Clooney and Robertson. And Hugh Laurie plays the villain in this movie, and while I like what his character was saying, I just found his portrayal to be kind of boring. Now, on the plus side, I thought the special effects were very good, and I really liked how the themes of optimism and people complaining about fearing the future but not doing anything about it, and I really liked how Clooney and Robertson really contrasted with each other. I found Tomorrowland to be lackluster and the plot a little bit complicated, especially for a family audience to perhaps follow. There were people that complained about the ending. I didn't really give it much thought, honestly, when I left the theater, and people were saying that this movie was preachy, and interestingly, I didn't think the movie was really that preachy at all. So overall, I think this movie will have a cult following, it will have its defenders, but I just found it to be a disappointment. Alright, what was, in my opinion, the worst movie of the summer blockbuster season? Well, my choice is probably going to be a bit obvious. There was a lot of negative buzz about the movie, not necessarily from critics, but from the studio that it came from. And in the end, you know, people kind of agreed with that. The worst movie, in my opinion, of the summer blockbuster season was The Fantastic Four. Now, I will admit, I didn't think it was 100% disaster. I thought it had good ideas, but I just felt like it was executed poorly. Director Josh Trank puts the characters in a realistic setting, kind of like The Dark Knight, which I thought was refreshing, but I know a lot of people said that the Fantastic Four should not be put in a realistic setting. I liked the lead characters, and I liked how they were all different from one another. They contrasted each other very well, like Reed is this bookworm who just loves science, and Ben Grimm works at his family's salvage yard. He's a bit blue-collar. Sue Storm is the snarky adopted sister to the rebellious Johnny Storm, and Victor Von Doom is pretty much a dick who thinks he's the smartest and best around. The dialogue and some of the scenes I thought did a decent job at helping with the character development here. But the problem that I had with the Fantastic Four was everybody just sounded monotone, or it sounded like they were reading off of cue cards. Some of the actors did try to put some feeling into their performances, like Miles Teller as Reed and Toby Kebbell as Victor Von Doom. And even Reed's science teacher at the beginning of the movie, played by Dan Castellaneta, I argue gave the best performance out of the whole movie, and more than the leads. The people that I thought did a poor job with performance-wise was Reg E. Cathy, who plays Dr. Storm, who's behind the project, and Sue Storm played... I thought the Fantastic Four did a nice try at making a superhero character drama, but I think with something like this, you need an experienced director and screenwriter. I know people were expecting action scenes and superheroes because most of them have them, so that might have been another disappointment for some people. Also, the dialogue wasn't really that colorful, and I kind of found it to be bland, and some of the plot points just felt convenient. So overall, I like that the movie took risks, but I think if in more experienced hands, it probably could have been better than what it was. Because Josh Trank only directed one previous film, and I don't know if he was ready to tackle a big project like this. Alright, so recapping, the two movies that I was disappointed in this past summer season was Terminator Genisys and Tomorrowland, and the worst was The Fantastic Four. Alright, now I'm going to open the floor to you. Do you agree with my choices? Do you feel like I was being too harsh with some of my choices? Go ahead and post your comments, and if you're interested, consider visiting the main page and you can look at some other reviews of movies that are currently playing in the theaters or currently available for home viewing on DVD, streaming, or Blu-ray. Thank you very much for watching.